What are we gonna do, Russ? What are we gonna do, bud? What are we gonna do, Russ? Good morning, everybody. Welcome back to True Crime Loser. Shout out to my people in Minnesota. It's cold there too. We didn't even mention it. So, Minnesota, this one's for you. How's it going, everybody? Happy Friday. It's a weird feeling kind of being pretty much done with the Chris Watts case. I feel like a person that just retired. Now I don't know what to do with myself, and my wife is like, just go play golf. And I'm like, I don't want to go play golf. But I'm doing okay. Thanks. Doing okay. All right. So today, I don't know how smart it is to just get into a whole new case on a Friday, but I thought I'd try. See how it went. And yeah, I think Russell Williams is just the next step. I want to do Russell Williams and the loud music killer guy, whatever, I forgot his name, and I want to do Dustin Freetridge. I want to do Stephen McDaniels and Holtzclaw. I want to just do a bunch of interrogation analysis with all of the real popular ones on YouTube. And so I figured Russell Williams is next. I think it's the best interrogation on YouTube. It's just a masterpiece for a lot of different reasons. And so, yeah, let's get into it. I'm going to just summarize very quickly who Russell Wilson is and how he ended up in the interrogation chair. But if you haven't heard much about it, there's a bunch of good documentaries. The Fifth Estate did a documentary. You can learn all about it. But anyway, so Russell Williams. Whew, what a scary ass man. Russell Williams is a Canadian guy that was a very high up, respected pilot in their military, in the Canadian military. And he flew cargo planes, so like material into war, and he flew all their top politics around. And there's a base in Ontario, and I think he ran that whole base. So very respected and very high up in the military. And the military hierarchy is an interesting thing. And the people that are very high up in the military and have been high up for a number of years have this confidence because they're important, and these are the people below you, and they have to treat you like this, and here's the people above you, and and it's very structured. And I actually did stand up for our troops on an aircraft carrier like 2 weeks ago. So I got on the aircraft carrier in Hawaii, and it was called a Tiger Cruise. So this aircraft carrier with 5,000 soldiers on it had been deployed, essentially just at war, parked in the South China Sea and over by the Middle East for 9 months. So they had just been working 9 months, this city on the water, giant aircraft carrier. And then as the 9 months end, they pull into Hawaii, and it's called the Tiger Cruise. And what it is they pull into Hawaii and they allow everybody, it's the last week of everyone's deployment, but they don't want to just let people that have been at war for 9 months just right back into society, because it's a big jump. It's like they've almost been institutionalized on this boat. And so what they do is they pull into Hawaii. They let everybody's friends and family get on, and then for a week they go from Hawaii all the way to San Diego, and everybody's family's on, so the families follow their friend or their kid or whoever it is. They follow them around for a week, kind of shadow them. They get to see what they've been doing on the ship. And then there's also entertainment. So there was a band one night, and I did comedy one night, and they did whole ship-wide bingo one night. But it was interesting because I just really learned about the hierarchy of the military. Of it's like, the people that are high up, they really get built up and they can really just kind of talk down to anyone under them, and they get really used to being respected. And the higher up they are, kind of the more like, I'm very important. Look at me. Like that person had to salute me and I must be important. It's impossible not for it to go to your head if all these people have to be like, sir, like, and as a military, you need the people to be confident, and they build them up on purpose so they can make the hard decision. But anyway, my point is Russell is very confident, and he's used to being a very important person and a very respected person. And as the interrogation gets going and as the pressure turns up and his little status as Colonel Boy Russell Williams isn't helping him and is being 100% ignored, you can see that he's not used to that and that it's not a comfortable situation. So anyway, Russell Williams, highly respected, powerful pilot in Ontario, and him and his wife, who he loves very much, had just finished building their dream house, this big, modern, like tall, cool-looking modern house. And it comes out that they had been building it for a year. So they have a house in Ontario, and then they have a little cottage. I think it's maybe a Canadian viewer can help me out, but I think it's like an hour or a half hour away from that house. They had a little cottage in Tweed, a little town called Tweed, and a lot of the times, I don't know if it's because of how Russell worked, the weird hours of being a pilot, or if he just liked to be alone to do his weird stuff, but a lot of nights I think that Russell would end up sleeping in Tweed, like at the little cottage, and his wife in Ontario. I don't know how many nights they actually spent together, but there was a lot of nights that either after work Russell would go to their place in Tweed, or and just, I guess my point is just he would be somewhere. He had a house that his wife wasn't in. He had an opportunity to be alone a lot of the times, which if you're a freaky ass underwear weirdo murderer, that I guess is convenient for you. Okay, so Russell Williams, his college friends said that he really liked to pull pranks where he would kind of sneak into a house. He would sneak into your room and he would hide in the closet, and he was really good at it, and he would hide for a really long time. And so he definitely had an inclination to kind of prowl around. And I think that, I don't know for sure, but I think that's probably what his first kind of criminal activity would look like, is he really liked to just sort of be a night prowler. He'd put a mask on and he'd hop into backyards and he'd go into houses that didn't have anyone home, and he'd snoop around, and he's just was a scary monster, basically. He's as close to a horror movie killer as I think that I've seen. And then I don't know if he was always kind of an underwear weirdo, but then he started his underwear phase, and it was like 30 or 40 houses in that area reported a break-in and having like women's underwear and women's dresses and women's bikinis, and all of that kind of stuff was missing, like 50 or 40 houses or something, just crazy, all around his little cottage in Tweed. And they show, in one of the documentaries, they show like that neighborhood, and they light up every house that's had their underwear stolen, and it's just every house in that area except Russell's college is like, hey, our underwear is gone. So that's kind of the first And then I think it's one of those people that I don't know if he was abused as a kid or he's abused by his mom. There's one point in the interrogation where Detective Jim Smith is calling him Russell, and Russell goes, "Call me Russ." And to me, that kind of sounds like maybe he had a. I think that the people that like Bundy and maybe Russell Williams, it seems like they were either abused by their mom or something. It's like she would say, "Russell, get over here," or something, and now he just can't even hear, call me Russ. And he does such horrible stuff to women, and just where he needs to dominate the situation. And I don't know, that's got to come from some sort of abuse, or maybe his head is broken or something. But okay, so anyway, he has a compulsion to steal women's underwear, and then he kind of ups the ante from there. And what he likes to do is he puts on the underwear and dresses and stuff, and he takes pictures of himself. Just a real. And then so all the underwear stuff is happening, and then two really horrible sexual assaults go down where women are in their apartment or in their houses, and a man comes in and either wakes them up by hitting them or just overpowering them, and then he ties them up, makes them put on underwear, he puts on their underwear, takes a bunch of pictures of them, takes pictures of himself, and then leaves. Doesn't kill him. All right, so those two cases pop up, and I'm pretty sure those are both in Tweed. And then he ups the ante more and basically does that same type of thing where he goes into a woman's house, subdues her by either hitting her with a flashlight. He carries around, he's just a scary monster. He carries around one of those huge metal red flashlights that he uses to hit, and it's just terrifying. And so he does the same type of thing where he goes in, sexually assaults, does weird stuff with underwear, and then murders the next two. So, bunch of weird underwear stuff, two really bad sexual assaults where he let the women live, and then two where he killed them. And then one of them, she was in Ontario, and so he went into her house in Ontario, assaulted her, and then brought her to Tweed, to his place in Tweed. Just what a nightmare. Assaulted her there and then killed her there. And so the cops don't even really know at the beginning, are these two sexual assaults and these two murders, are they all connected? And they're trying to figure out this whole mess. And what's mind-blowing is Russell Williams is a very smart and very logical guy, but he really doesn't do much to try to cover his tracks. I mean, he leaves DNA, he leaves tire tracks, he leaves foot marks. So to me, I think that he probably hated that he did this, and he would tell himself he's never going to do it again. And then he would start to get a craving, and then he would start to get a really bad craving, and then he would say, okay, I'm going to put my mask on and just go out and maybe steal a little underwear. But, he had to keep the high that he got from dominating a situation. I don't think that he could live without, even though he knew that, it's probably not going to be a good long game. But so anyway, the cops are starting to get their stuff together as the four people, or as they figure out these four cases are all together, right? And they the last victim, the one where he started in Ontario and assaulted her there, and then ended up bringing her to Tweed and assaulting her there and then killing her, he kind of pulled into her property in a field and drove along I think, the tree line kind of, and then parked. And it was a weird place and he left his car there while he assaulted her, and then they got in the car and went to Tweed. But it was a weird place to leave a car, and a few people noticed that it's weird that there was a car there. And so as the news came out that this woman was missing, a couple people remembered, hey, I saw a weird car in her field. So a couple people, I think one guy and maybe another cop or something, called in and said, I saw this SUV sitting in this field of the woman that disappeared that you guys can't find. Maybe check it out. So the Canadian police went out there, and luckily it hadn't snowed, and there was like perfect tire tracks and perfect boot prints from the tire tracks up to the door. And so they got the tires. They think they got the tires. And so they set up roadblocks. And as they set up roadblocks and they start looking at cars, they're not seeing anything. And then old Russell Williams, old respected pilot boy, old Russ, drives through thinking he's all good, thinking he's above suspicion, thinking there's no way anyone would ever think that he would do it. He flew the prime minister, or whatever they call it in Canada. And he pulls in, they check his tires. Holy shit, these are the same ones, but they don't make a big fuss about it. Send him on his way. From that moment forward, he has a police following him everywhere he goes. And then I think either that Sunday or maybe they wait a week or something, but that Sunday they call him down and to ask him if he can come down to the police station and answer a couple questions. He tells his wife, they're sitting in their new house. It took a year to build. His wife's dream house. He says to his wife, I'll be home for dinner. They just want to talk to me. I think that there's a theory that he thought they were going to ask about his neighbor in Tweed. His neighbor in Tweed had been a prime suspect, and he's kind of this hunter guy that always went shooting and wore a chain. I think they were like, this is the guy. And so he told his wife, I'll be home for dinner. And he leaves to go talk to the police. And he sits down, and here we go. And this interrogation is very interesting for a couple reasons. Interrogators, I would say Jim Smith, I don't know for sure, but I would say most people that are being questioned for murder are kind of like drugged out or, kind of on the bottom of the barrel. The interrogators aren't used to talking to respected military. This is a very strange case. So you can tell that Jim Smith kind of prepared himself to not be thrown off, to not treat this guy any different, to not be intimidated. And it just makes the whole thing very interesting. Okay, so Russ comes in. He's very much playing the card of I am a highly respected military official, just here to help, just here, that's what I do. And just like how I talked about how in the Chris Watts case, they knew he had to pretend that he's a concerned dad. They know in this case that an innocent man that's a highly respected military isn't just going to go, I'm not helping you with this. And so he very much is playing Jim says, hey, we're bringing a bunch of people in. We're talking to them. We're really trying to solve this case. All these women are getting. And Russ is playing the card of, oh, good. I'm glad you guys are doing your thing. I'm glad that you're trying to find this guy. And Russ seems very relaxed. He seems like his legs are out and crossed and his arms are down, and he seems very okay with this situation. I think that he thinks that he can just sort of talk his way out. But what he doesn't know is the guy sitting across from him, Jim Smith, is an absolute just murderer as far as an interrogation. He is it's like when a snake or something suffocates its prey, it slithers around them, and then it just slowly, and the more you fight, just the worse it gets, and just over the next hour or whatever it is, Jim just slowly and calmly and meticulously lays out the evidence until Russ is just a beaten, scared little underwear weirdo. And it's beautiful to see, but that's not for a little bit, and a lot happens quickly. All right, so they're making small talk, and Jim says, "You ever been in a police interrogation room like this?" And Russ goes, "No, I never have. I've never been in it." And then Russ does his first attempt at kind of bringing his status to the situation. He said, "Closest I've been to a room like this is when I can't hear the word." He says either when I asked for top secret clearance or when I was given top secret clearance. And that is saying, that's his way of nicely saying to this interrogator, "Listen, little cop boy, I know you're a cop. I know you're a maybe even important cop, but I am way above you in this whole government thing with respect." And he's kind of throwing his little military weight. And that's what I saw on the aircraft carrier a little bit. Like the very last day when we're pulling into San Diego, we had a bunch of trash in our room that had accumulated over the week on the aircraft carrier. And you got to clean out your room, and, you got to hand in your wool blankets and the mattress or, and all that stuff. And there's a bunch of trash, and they were telling everyone where to put the trash to get everyone off those boats, the 5,000 people after being on there a month. It is a process. And so I got this bag of trash, and I'm following kind of my chaperone for the weekend, and he's a very high up pilot too. And we're going, and we get to this dumpster or a place to put trash, and like some very low enlisted person was like, "Oh, actually, you guys can't put your trash here." And the pilot that I was with, this high up, was like, "We're putting it here. Sorry." And you could tell the enlisted, like the one lower down, was just like, "All right, well, can't really say much." But this was his first time to kind of throw his military weight around, being like, "I've been in a room like this when I asked for top secret clearance, buddy boy." And Jim Smith's reaction is amazing. He goes, "Yeah? Well, anyway, Russ, the reason we're here," and he just totally dismisses it. And on the Fifth Estate documentary, they bring up that he never once calls him Colonel, because he's not Colonel anymore. He's not Colonel in this room. He's little Russ, the underwear weirdo. And then he goes, "Okay, Russ, the reason we're here," and he's still kind of treating him like, "We're talking to a lot of people. I just want to get past you." And so he goes, "Yeah, well, anyway, Russ, here's what we're here for." And and Jim Smith is a true investigator in the sense of, I don't think he's going to pull any tricks of like where he pretends to have footage that he doesn't. You know how some interrogators are like, "We got the tape. We got the tape of you, and soon as that comes out, what are you going to say?" Even though they don't have the tape and the person confesses. I don't think Jim needs to do that. Jim is just the silent killer, and he kind of, before Russ even knows what's going on, he starts just in detail going over the 4 charges or the 4 crimes that they're talking about. So Russ is thinking that, hey, we're just doing small talk, we're going to get into this, and boom, all of a sudden, Russell Williams is just reading in detail all of these crimes. So all of a sudden, Russ is just kind of thrust quickly into acting for the first time. So all of a sudden, in his head, he has to decide what he's going to pretend to know and what he's going to pretend that he has never heard of yet. He's going to have to pretend, that he hasn't heard of this, and he knows this, and he's going to have to kind of get his story quickly. It's an interesting strategy that Jim Smith did that I had never really seen before, where it was like, oh, hey, small talk. All right, small talk's over. Here's the crimes. I want to see how you react to them. And so he's going through, and Russell's going, oh, yeah, I didn't hear about that until maybe on the news. And Jim Smith's going, okay, well, where were you when you heard that? Were you in the news? Or where, how did you feel when you saw that? And had you heard that? And it's just very quickly, Russell has to get his story down and quick. And it's an interesting way to do it. Just the slowness and the details of how he lays out each of the crimes. It's like he's forcing him, Russell, to react to it and to see how he reacts. And then they kind of get into the, okay, we got to do this for everybody, but I'm going to read you your rights. And at this point, you can tell Russell is thinking, I don't know if I'm going to be home for dinner, but I still don't think that he thinks this is going down today. I think that he thinks that they're still going to respect him as a pilot and not push too hard, and they tell him, in Canada, I guess, that you have the right to attorney, but you just go, if you do want to talk to an attorney, they just bring you to a room and you can call an attorney and talk to him, and then you can just go back into the interrogation room. I kind of like that, but so that he says, if you want to talk to an attorney, we have this room, you can go talk to him. And then he does something really interesting. He goes, is there any reason you would want to talk to an attorney? And this is just challenging Russ. It's like, are you going to pretend? Are you going to keep pretending that you're just this innocent, respected pilot? Or are you going to ditch that now and you want to talk to an attorney? And Russ, just like old Chrissy Poo Chris Watts, he's because of who he is pretending to be, he has to pretend to help. He has to play the game, or it would just throw a wrench into everything. So he goes, no, I don't need a lawyer. And then Jim Smith goes, do you have a lawyer? And he goes, I have a real estate lawyer. Just being like, why would I need a lawyer? I'm a pillar of the community. Yeah, so, he just brushes it off. He's laughing. You don't have to take, being like, I'm on your side. We're all in the government here. And so far, Detective Jim Smith has done a real good job not calling him Colonel, not entertaining that he has top secret clearance or whatever. And it's a really slick, Jim Smith does a really slick way. He has a really slick kind of strategy to just get Russell feeling like, you're in my world now. This isn't where you get to boss around people a lot lower than you. And by about 5 minutes and 50 seconds in, that's all we are at this point. I think that Russ realizes they're not here to talk about my neighbor. And his body language doesn't go into full-on arms crossed, hugging himself for dear life yet. That's about 10 more minutes. But you can tell he starts chewing the shit out of his gum. He's got this gum, and this poor gum is just taking all of the energy. And this is probably where I'll end this one. It's getting long. And then Russell Williams does, because two of the people are very close to, their houses are very close to where Russell Williams lives in Tweed. And one of the victims worked at the base. She was I think she was a pilot. And then one of the victims was by his place in Ontario. So what Jim says is, instead of laying all that out, it's like, hey, the reason you're in here is two of the people live by your place in Tweed. One of them kind of basically works with you, and one of them is by your place in Ontario. That's why we suspect you, and that's why we brought you in, because that makes sense. But what he does is, instead of saying that, he says, the reason we brought you in, Russ, is you have a connection to all four of these cases. Wouldn't you agree? And Russ is sitting there just being like, in his head, he's probably thinking of breaking into their houses and murdering two of them and trying on their underwear. And he's sitting there like, yeah, I guess I do have a connection, like in the sense that I drive, like geographically, I drive by, but it's just a really good way to do it. Of like, I mean, you got a connection. Wouldn't you agree? What are we going to do, Russ? And from there, he just keeps putting the squeeze on him. And it's not the squeeze of like bad cop, like, come on, Russ. You know you did it. I know you did it. All he does is he just keeps presenting the evidence to Russ. Russ, here's this. And he, of the strategy of, I'm only following the evidence, and the evidence is pointing at you, so how do I move past you? And it just starts to get heated. I guess not really heated, just intense. And he just breaks him down. A man that has been built up by the military to not be broken down, he just slowly breaks him down. And it's a beautiful process. But this one is getting long, so this will be part 1. People, I hope you're staying warm out there. I hope that everyone is okay with the Chris Watts case being almost done. I was thinking I might do a video on dissecting the lyrics to Battery by Metallica, the song that he listened to, something like that. But anyway, it's a weird time. I had been doing that for 2 weeks straight, so feels good, though, I think, to get another case. I do want to do the Fire Festival, but I kind of started working on it last night. That's going to be a little bit down the road. I don't want to rush into it. All I did was watch the documentaries, so it's not like I have too much to say about it. But anyway, much love, everyone. Thanks to everybody that participates and subscribes and supports the channel. I love you. True Crime Loser out. Woo!